Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Learning Science, and in this video we are going to discuss part 2 of chapter 4 materials, metals and non-metals. So let's proceed. The topics we had covered in the previous part was that how to classify materials, and in that we classified materials as metals and non-metals on the basis of their physical and chemical properties, and even we have discussed some of the physical properties of both metals and non-metals, and that were hardness, luster and malleability. We saw that how metals were hard and lustrous, whereas non-metals were soft and dull in appearance. Similarly, we discussed the third property, which was malleability, in which the metals were beaten into thin sheets. Did non-metals also acquire this property? Of course not. We saw that how coal, instead of getting converted into thin sheets, was break down into a pouchy mass. And we also know that how this property was useful for metals, like you have seen aluminum foil. It is used for wrapping food. Similarly, silver foil. It is used for decorating sweets. So in this video, we are going to discuss the rest of the three properties of metals and non-metals, which are ductility, sonorous, and good conductors of heat and electricity. So let's proceed. Ductility. In this figure, you can see wires made of copper. But have you ever seen wires of coal? Of course not. Why? Because you saw that the coal on beating, it converted into this pouchy mass instead of getting converted into thin sheets. So can this pouchy mass be drawn into wires? Of course not. We saw that the materials which are malleable also acquire this property of ductility. So what is ductility basically? This is a property of metals by which they can be drawn into wires. It's called ductility. As metals possesses this property, they are called ductile. Now understand here that because metals were beaten and molded into different shapes, they can be molded into the shape of wires as well. But as coal, as non-metal, instead of getting converted into thin sheets, it is tapping into powdery mass. So this powdery mass be converted into wires? Of course not. So this is the property of metals, ductility, which means that the metals can be drawn into wires, and non-metals are non-ductile, of course. Now this is the next property of sonorous. Now here you can take a metal coin and a coal piece and drop them both on the ground. So will you be able to differentiate the sound produced by both of them? Of course, there will be a huge difference between when the metal coin strikes the ground, it produces a ringing sound, but then when the coal piece strikes the ground, it did not produce any ringing sound like that. And you must have seen bells as well. Bells in the temples are made of metal. Why are they not made of wood? You know that because wood, if bells were made of wood, would they produce ringing sound as this bell would make? Will it be loud sound? Of course not. So here comes another property of metals. And what is this property? The things made of metal produce a ringing sound when struck hard. So if you take a stick and beat any metal piece, so it would produce a ringing sound. So this is a property of metals by which they produce a ringing sound when struck hard. It is called sonority. So metals are sonorous, and of course non-metals are non-sonorous. As in the case of wood bells, you see that if wooden bells were there, would they produce any ringing sound, and this metal bell would do? No. So that's why we say that metals are sonorous, whereas non-metals are non-sonorous. So if I give you two boxes, one is made of metal and one is made of non-metal, and I give you a stick and say from this stick and these two metals, identify which is a metal and which is a non-metal. So what will you do? You will strike the stick on both the materials one by one, and the material which will produce a ringing sound, you can declare that this is a metal and the other one is a non-metal. So how simple it makes for us to identify which is a metal and which is a non-metal. Okay, clear? So let's proceed. Good conductors of heat and electricity. So this is a property which you are been studying since class 6th. Good conductors and poor conductors. What does this mean? You know that good conductors mean that the substances, the materials which allow electricity to pass through them easily are good conductors of heat and electricity. And similarly, poor conductors of heat and electricity are those which do not allow heat and electricity to pass through them easily. So you know this is iron, aluminum, and copper, and they are good conductors of heat and electricity. Similarly, this is plastic, wood, and glass, which are poor conductors of heat and electricity. So we found one thing common, that all these metals are good conductors, whereas these non-metals are poor conductors. So now I hope you have understood that metals are good conductors of heat and electricity, whereas non-metals are poor conductors of heat and electricity. That's why if there's a hot metallic pen, will you be able to hold it by surface? No, you take use of this handle which is not made of metal. It is made of either wood or plastic. And what's the reason for it? It is because wood and plastic are poor conductors of heat and electricity, so they cannot get heated up, so we can easily handle the hot metallic pan by its handle. Did you understand it? Okay. So thank you. For more such videos, please subscribe to our channel. And on part 3 on chemical properties of metals is coming soon. So stay tuned for watching that. Thank you. Keep learning.